right, so get this. Have you ever heard that phrase, never sell your Bitcoin?
Oh,
Yeah.
it sounds kind of wild.
Like some hardcore Bitcoin maximalist thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if there's actually like more to it than meets the eye? So today we're going to go deep on this whole idea, exploring, how you could tap into Bitcoin's value without actually selling it.
Yeah, what's really fascinating about that concept is it's the potential to access that liquidity without triggering a taxable event like capital gains,
Right. We're talking about strategies that let you leverage your Bitcoin holdings without giving up ownership.
Exactly. And one of the most exciting ways to do this is through DeFi. Decentralized finance. We'll be looking at platforms like aave, which let you borrow against your Bitcoin.
That's right.
Just a quick disclaimer before we dive in. This is all hypothetical.
Of course.
Based on the stuff we have. And definitely not financial advice or tax advice.
Yeah, for sure.
Always consult with qualified professionals for personalized guidance.
Absolutely. The crypto world is still evolving and regulations can change. So it's super crucial to do your own research, understand the risks involved.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What does never sell your Bitcoin actually mean, like in practice?
In essence, it's about finding ways to utilize your Bitcoin's value without triggering an actual sale. Think of it like owning a really valuable piece of art. You wouldn't necessarily sell it to access its value. You might borrow against it, use it as collateral.
That's a great analogy.
So
instead of selling our Bitcoin for cash, we're essentially taking out a loan against it.
Exactly.
But why would someone choose to do that? Wouldn't it just be simpler to sell a portion of your holdings?
Well, that's where Bitcoin's deflationary nature comes into play. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin mined. And every 4 years or so, an event called the halving occurs, which cuts the rate of new Bitcoin creation in half.
So the supply is constantly shrinking. And if demand keeps growing.
Exactly. Basic economics tells us that scarcity plus increasing demand equals potential for price appreciation. And that's a key reason why some Bitcoin holders are hesitant to sell. They believe in its long-term potential, and they don't want to miss out on future gains.
Historically, Bitcoin has seen some pretty impressive growth.
It has.
I remember reading that its average annual appreciation rate has been somewhere between 30 and 60%.
It's been remarkable.
Why?
But it's important to remember that past performance is not indicative of future results. Bitcoin is notoriously volatile. And there's always the risk that the price could drop significantly.
Of course, no investment is without risk. So let's get into the mechanics of how this borrowing strategy actually works. On a platform like aave. What are the steps involved?
Think of aave as like this giant crypto lending and borrowing marketplace. You deposit your Bitcoin as collateral. But here's the thing. aave primarily uses what are called wrapped assets, like WBTC. Imagine wrapping your Bitcoin like a present. You're basically putting it in the special digital package called WBTC, which is pegged to the value of Bitcoin, but allows you to use it on platforms like aave. It's all done through smart contracts, which are like self-executing agreements written in code.
So I deposit my WBTC, and then what? Can I just borrow like any cryptocurrency I want?
Well, it depends on the platform and what's available. Typically, you can borrow stable coins, which are cryptocurrencies that are designed to maintain a stable value, pegged to something like the US dollar. Or you could borrow other cryptocurrencies.
But that can come with additional risks due to their volatility.
And how do interest rates work in this DeFi world? Are they similar to what you'd find at a traditional bank?
Not quite. One of the key differences is that interest rates on aave are dynamic. Meaning they fluctuate based on supply and demand. If a lot of people want to borrow a particular asset, the interest rate goes up. Vice versa.
Makes sense. So we've got our Bitcoin all wrapped up as WBTC. It's sitting there on a fave. And we're ready to borrow against it. But this whole thing still feels a little abstract to me. Can we walk through like a specific scenario?
Absolutely.
To see how this might play out in real life.
Let's say you start with 10 Bitcoin. And for the sake of this example, let's assume the price of Bitcoin is $100,000 per coin.
I'm following so far.
So you have a cool $1 million worth of Bitcoin.
$1 million worth of digital gold. What's next? You decide you need some liquidity.
Okay.
Maybe to invest in a business opportunity, make a down payment on a property.
Right.
But you don't want to sell any of your Bitcoin because you believe it's going to appreciate significantly over the next 5 years.
Makes sense. So we head over to aave.
Yeah.
Deposit our WBTC.
That's right.
How much can we realistically borrow against it?
That depends on a few factors, including your risk tolerance and the platform's lending parameters.
Okay.
But let's just say you decide to borrow a conservative 30% of your Bitcoin's value, which would be $300,000.
Okay.
And let's assume the interest rate on this loan is 6%.
So in year one, we'd be paying $18,000 in interest.
Correct.
But crucially, we haven't sold any of our Bitcoin.
That's right.
So no capital gains tax yet.
Exactly.
Now let's fast forward 5 years.
Okay.
Imagine Bitcoin has reached a price of $1 million per coin.
Right.
Our 10 Bitcoin are now worth $10 million.
There you go.
Talk about a nice return on investment.
Exactly. But remember, you still have that $300,000 loan to contend with.
So how do we access this newfound wealth without triggering that taxable event?
Right.
Do we just pay off the loan and call it a day?
Not necessarily. Here's where things get really interesting.
Right.
Because the value of your collateral has increased so dramatically.
Right.
Your loan-to-value ratio is now incredibly low.
Okay.
You're in a very strong position.
So we could actually unlock a significant portion of that $10 million.
You got it.
Without selling any Bitcoin or putting ourselves at risk of liquidation.
Exactly. You could potentially unlock up to $9 million while maintaining a healthy loan-to-value ratio.
Okay, now my mind is racing with possibilities.
Yeah.
What could we do with that unlocked $9 million?
Well, you could reinvest it in other assets.
Okay.
Diversify your portfolio, or even use it to generate some passive income.
Passive income? Tell me more. That sounds intriguing.
Remember those lending pools we talked about earlier? Yeah.
You could deposit that $9 million into a stablecoin lending pool.
Okay.
And earn interest on it.
Wait a minute. So we're borrowing against our Bitcoin and then turning around and lending out the money we borrowed? Is that even allowed?
It's not only allowed.
Okay.
It's a common strategy in DeFi.
Wow.
And it can be quite lucrative if you manage your risk carefully.
Okay. Let's break this down.
Okay.
We're paying 6% interest on our $300,000 loan.
Right.
Which comes out to $18,000 per year.
Correct.
But what kind of interest rates could we potentially earn by lending out our $9 million?
It varies depending on the platform and the specific lending pool.
Okay.
But let's say you find a stablecoin lending pool offering a 3% APY.
Okay.
That would generate $270,000 per year in passive income.
So even after paying off the interest on our loan, we'd be left with $252,000.
That's right.
In net positive cash flow every single year.
Every year.
And we still haven't sold any of our original Bitcoin. That's the power of the strategy.
It almost sounds too good to be true.
Well,
are there any downsides?
Of course, no investment strategy is without risk.
Okay.
And DeFi in particular is still a relatively new and evolving space.
All right, so we've seen how this never sell your Bitcoin strategy could potentially play out using DeFi platforms like aave.
Right.
Borrowing against your Bitcoin, generating passive income.
Yeah.
Pretty compelling idea.
It is.
But before we get too carried away, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Risk.
Yeah.
What are some of the potential downsides we need to consider?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. Risk is inherent in any investment strategy.
Right.
And DeFi is no exception.
Yeah.
One of the biggest risks with this approach is Bitcoin's volatility.
Okay.
If the price of Bitcoin drops significantly, your loan-to-value ratio could increase, putting you at risk of liquidation.
Liquidation? That sounds scary.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
Yeah. In simple terms, it means that if the value of your collateral falls below a certain threshold, the platform could automatically sell some of your Bitcoin to cover the loan.
So even though you haven't technically sold your Bitcoin yourself, you could still end up losing a portion of your holdings.
You could.
If the market moves against you.
That's right.
Okay, so volatility is definitely a factor to consider. What about those fluctuating interest rates we talked about earlier?
Yes.
Could those also pose a risk?
Absolutely. Remember, interest rates on DeFi platforms are dynamic.
Right.
Meaning they can change quickly based on market conditions.
Okay.
The 6% interest rate you're paying on your loan today could jump to 8% or even 10% tomorrow.
Wow.
If demand for borrowing increases.
And on the flip side, the 3% interest you're earning from lending could drop.
Could drop.
If more people start depositing their stable coins into those lending pools.
Exactly. So your profit margin could shrink or even disappear completely.
Right.
If interest rates move in an unfavorable direction.
Okay, beyond market risks.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential pitfalls we should be aware of?
Sure.
When venturing into the world of DeFi?
Well, DeFi platforms themselves are still relatively new.
Yeah.
And experimental.
Okay.
There's always the risk of smart contract bugs or vulnerabilities that could be exploited by hackers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the regulatory landscape, which is still very much in flux.
Right.
Governments around the world are still grappling with how to regulate cryptocurrencies and DeFi.
Yeah.
So there's a level of uncertainty that investors need to be comfortable with.
So it sounds like due diligence is crucial.
Is.
Before diving headfirst into DeFi.
Absolutely.
Do your research understand the risks?
Right.
And maybe start with a small amount of capital just to get your feet wet.
I couldn't agree more. It's also wise to diversify your investments.
Yeah.
Not just within the crypto space.
Right.
But across different asset classes. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
That's sound advice for any investor. But let's shift gears a bit and talk about the future.
Okay.
We've explored the mechanics of this never sell your Bitcoin strategy.
Right.
We discussed the risks.
Yeah.
But what might the future hold for Bitcoin itself? Could its evolution impact the viability of this approach?
It's certainly a question worth pondering.
Oh.
One of the key factors to consider is institutional adoption.
Okay.
More and more large companies, hedge funds, even pension funds are adding Bitcoin to their portfolios.
Really?
This influx of institutional money could potentially lead to greater stability in the Bitcoin market.
Interesting.
Which could make the strategy even more appealing.
So less volatility, more stability.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good thing for long-term holders.
It could be another interesting development to watch is the emergence of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs.
CBDCs.
If governments start issuing their own digital currencies,
right,
it could have a profound impact on the entire crypto ecosystem, including Bitcoin.
How so? Would CBDCs compete with Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Or could they potentially coexist?
It's too early to say for sure.
Okay.
Some experts believe that CBDCs could actually drive further adoption of cryptocurrencies. As people become more comfortable with the concept of digital money,
right.
Others worry that CBDCs could pose a threat to Bitcoin's dominance.
It's fascinating to think about all the potential scenarios that could unfold in the coming years.
Absolutely.
The crypto space is constantly evolving.
It is.
It's anyone's guess what the future holds.
Exactly, and that's part of what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up our deep dive into the never sell your Bitcoin concept, it's important to emphasize that this is just one strategy among many.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to investing.
Right.
And what works for one person may not work for another.
Absolutely. It's essential to do your own research.
Yes.
Carefully assess your risk tolerance and consult with qualified professionals before making any investment decisions.
Couldn't agree more.
And remember, this deep dive was for informational purposes only.
That's right.
And not financial, legal, or tax advice.
Precisely. But hopefully we've sparked some curiosity and given you some food for thought.
I think so.
The world of Bitcoin and DeFi is full of possibilities.
Yeah.
And we encourage you to explore these concepts further and see where they lead you.
Thanks for joining us on this fascinating journey into the world of never sell your Bitcoin.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop questioning.